It is Monday, and I am super excited to just have this chat with one of my good friends I'm going to introduce you to. Right now, we're going to be talking about opportunities with functional nursing. I've got my good friend Melissa Schreibfeder here, and she has been helping me. If you have followed me on TikTok at all, she's been helping me learn more about my own functional health care. So I've had PCOS for a long time. I've been sharing about that on TikTok, and I've been actually working with Melissa as my coach to help me get my health under control. Hey guys, if you're just joining, feel free to say hi in the chat. We can see you. We'd love to say hi to you. If you have questions, we'll kind of save them up for the end and just ask. Right now, if you just jumped on, I just introduced my friend Melissa. We've spoken together. We spoke together in Orlando in January. And I am currently one of her functional medicine clients, as well as have personally taken her functional medicine for nurses training program. And I'm really, really excited just to talk to you guys. Melissa, some of the people in this group may have no idea about what functional medicine is, how a nurse could do this as a business model. So we are really excited to learn from you, hear about your story. I'd love for you to share with them kind of how you even figured this out on your own.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys to discuss these amazing opportunities that are available for nurses in functional medicine and a little bit about my backstory. So I was really sick for probably half of my life and went through that whole medical gaslighting. There's nothing wrong with you. It must be in your head. Oh, here, why don't you take this anxiety pill that you don't really need? And by the time that I finally got diagnosed, after seeing 20 conventional physicians, I was so sick. I was gaining a pound a day. My hair was falling out, and I had a goiter, which thankfully that's gone. So all of this has been resolved. But I remember, because I was a nurse, I've been a nurse for over a decade. I was a nurse at this time too. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have healthcare experience. I know how to talk to doctors. I know how to look at labs. How did this happen to me? And what is happening just to like the average everyday person without the medical knowledge? And when I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's disease, I remember asking my doctor, this is an inflammatory condition. Shouldn't I do an anti-inflammatory diet? And then you're smiling because I think you've heard this too. They looked at me like I was crazy. And then they were like, oh, not much is known about that. So I decided that was not the route for me. And then I learned about functional medicine and root cause medicine, which actually makes sense to take the time to listen to the patient, to discover, okay, when there's a dysfunction in the body, there's something that is causing that dysfunction. Why don't we work together to activate these healing mechanisms of the body? Because our bodies know how to self-heal. We just need to take away what is bothering the body, like crap food, toxins, stress, and give the body what it needs, and we can heal. And after I went through this process, I was able to reduce my autoimmune antibodies by over 90%, which my doctors told me was impossible. I was able to lose the weight and resolve the majority of my symptoms. And I actually started my practice. The timing was definitely a God thing because it was a month before COVID. I had a very strong push, like get out there and do this. And I launched 1 month prior to COVID, and a lot of nurses don't realize they can do this, but I am not advanced practice. I do not have prescribing or diagnosing capability, but as like an RN, you can have an LLC. You can open up your own functional medicine practice, and there's even ways that you can order labs. Like I work with a partnering lab called Avexia Diagnostics It's $50 a month. I work with them, and there's a physician that I partner with at that laboratory that can sign off on my requisition forms. And again, how functional medicine nurses use labs, it's much different from when a patient goes to their doctor and gets their lab results, because a lot of times those standard reference ranges that are used, a lot of providers still don't understand that that's a statistical average of the US population. It is not what we need for optimal health. It is not gender or age specific. And as a functional nurse, I can look at this and say, I can't officially diagnose them with anything, but if I see something diagnosable, I can collaborate with their primary care provider. And then I can also help them to identify patterns of dysfunction, deficiencies. I can work with them to create a wellness plan to improve their nutrition and clean up the toxins in their life and look at root causes. Like, do you have stealth infections? Are you living in a moldy home? Do you have gut infections? So there's really a lot of wonderful work that nurses can do. And again, consistently, patients tend to trust nurses, and they especially trust nurses that left the system.
Yeah, I think we've kind of all seen, we all have our different beliefs and our different perspectives from what we've seen throughout the pandemic, throughout what we've seen in our employment experience, and through what we've seen in our own personal health experience. And what I'm finding is, I'm seeing more and more as our healthcare system deteriorates that physicians are not being allowed to even make the decisions for how the patient is treated. Those decisions and those treatment best practices are now determined by insurance companies or pharmaceutical companies who have shown up at the right time with the right product for the right physician. Or like a lot from what we've seen with vaccines, kickbacks. Give your 3 doses of vaccines, get an extra $100,000 per patient, right? So our treatment and what we're being prescribed, whether that be medications or, like you said, the strange way that physicians have approached nutrition, which is not at all, have no knowledge of nutrition, have no knowledge or resources to help patients who need more nutritional support or who are interested in, non-traditional methods. They literally can't function in that realm anymore because their hands have been tied. They've been given these protocols. So I really love that because I do think it is time for nurses to step up and take ownership in a lot of these areas, because these are areas that we were trained as nurses to understand and to facilitate education and a plan of care with our patients. This is nursing 101. And I don't know about you, Melissa, but in nursing school, when I try to think back if anything along the lines of functional medicine was ever taught to me, I can think of, some nutrition, general, very, very general, like the SAD American diet, the standard American diet. I learned in nursing school, and, we learned about complementary therapies in a way, almost with a negative connotation to some of them, that these were Ayurvedic or Chinese or, different therapies that were used hundreds of years ago before there was good healthcare options. And then we learned how to pass med. This is what this med is for. This is when it'll be prescribed. This is when you should give it. This is when you should hold it. And I think that structure is kind of tying nurses' hands from being able to think for themselves about what the real root of the problem is. Oh, if they have hypertension, then we should call the doctor and get a hypertension med. That is the summary of my entire experience as a nurse in long-term care. There was no real education or plan or, modifications made. It's call the doctor and get a new med.
Yeah, and then when you just think about this logically, you know, it doesn't make sense when somebody has a stroke. they have an MI, and then they're in the hospital, and then we're bringing them, here's your chocolate cake and your sloppy Joe, and oh, and here's a Coke that you can have with that too. It's almost like the healthcare industry isn't really about health.
Yeah.
And we know, I mean, we nickname it sick care all the time. But we see as nurses, and I know I went into nursing because I actually like wanted to help people. I wanted people to get better. But then when I started working as an RN, I was just running around like crazy, passing meds like crazy. I remember I had patients that were on 20 different medications. And we see over and over, the more medications that we give somebody, the worse their health becomes. And yes, there is an amazing appreciation for emergency medication, but we are really dropping the ball in this country when it comes to chronic disease processes. And currently in the US, over 54% of children in the US have a chronic illness. And I think that is underestimated because a lot goes under the radar and is not diagnosed. But we have to understand that we have a very pharmaceutical based healthcare model. We have a lot of special interest funding, and not only are pharmaceutical companies and big business, affecting the education that physicians receive in school, they're also affecting the education that we receive as nurses. And I also noticed, I did work before I started my practice, I was in nursing education. I was a nursing instructor at a university. And I noticed a lot of closed-mindedness about alternative therapies. It's kind of like, here's mainstream medicine. It's the truth, the light, and the way, and anything else is quackery. And, and then we even see that there are things that, we have evidence behind, traditional herbal therapies like berberine. We actually have studies when it comes to diabetes that berberine can be just as effective as metformin, but there's still, it's still not mainstream knowledge. And then, like you were saying before, Nina, with the insurance companies, I like to nickname insurance companies Big Pharma's ugly cousin because they're really not trying to get us healthy. It's, again, ties with big industry. But a lot of physicians, when you're using your insurance to get care, your physician has their hands tied from what the insurance company will allow them to order, because the insurance company dictates what will be covered by your insurance and what you're going to need to pay out of pocket. However, with these direct pay services, which again, that's what I do, I'm totally outside of the insurance system. I used to work with the insurance companies doing prior authorizations, and I can say that I'm pretty sure that they're the devil, but I want nothing to do with insurance. And when patients come to you with a direct pay model, and by the way, with labs, you can get labs ordered very cheaply. Like I can order.
Believe that.
Yes,
I could not believe when I found out what I've paid for some of these labs, what they really cost.
So I went undiagnosed with Hashimoto's for years, was convinced I was crazy. And the test to diagnose my Hashimoto's cost $14 out of pocket, but my insurance wouldn't cover it. So I didn't get that test, right?
Why do you think they wouldn't cover it?
So, well, instead of doing an antibody test, they sent me for very expensive, invasive procedures that were even more costly. And they sent me to a whole bunch of specialists and then offered me a lot of medications that I didn't need. So yeah, there's really not, when we look at like the big picture, when we look at big industry, healthy people are not generating a lot of revenue for this industry. There's a lot of money getting people on medications long-term, because in those medications, we know they cause more issues. They cause more dysfunction in the body that then seem to warrant more medications.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. And I really believe strongly that nurses could be the ones to change it. We've seen so many nurses waking up and just having this realization that, wait a second, I don't really have to be a part of this broken system anymore. I don't have to just go with the flow. So with functional medicine, tell us a little bit about how nurses could get started and how you can help them. Because I know you did this all on your own, and fortunately, we don't have to. So because of that,
Yes.
so tell us a little more about how that looks to start a practice, and how you could support nurses to do that.
Yeah. So I recommend starting a very low overhead concierge practice. So my practice, my overhead is less than $200 a month. The lower your overhead is, the more revenue that you're going to generate.
Yeah.
Also, with, I will say, a silver lining of COVID is people are becoming more and more distrustful of the system. And I'm seeing more people, when you tell them that, like, hey, it's direct pay, but you can use your HSA, FSA, health share account. People are more willing because they're seeing that there's value in, okay, I can pay this person that's outside of the system, that knows what they're talking about and has a plan for me. And then I can improve my health and then reduce the possibility of early death, suffering, and disability. So really, in the big picture, it's actually less expensive to do a direct pay service and actually get well and sustain that level of health. But nurses can operate in functional medicine independently. Now, if I were to be calling in their medications and doing things like that, I would need to have direct physician supervision. However, if you are practicing under the scope of education, when I do my lab reviews, when I am teaching them about what a healthy diet and exercise regimen looks like, that's all under my scope of education. Now, if I do see something that, say, warrants a medical procedure that does need to be ordered by a physician, then I will just write a letter to their physician saying, I recommend this person has a sleep study. Here's the justification. I recommend this person may benefit from thyroid hormone. Here are the labs. Here's the justification. So that's kind of how we can collaborate and advocate for them with their primary care provider, because in general, functional medicine is not a replacement for primary care. You're going to have your primary care provider in case you have an acute issue to do your annual visits and things like that. But the functional medicine is going to be the more detailed approach. We're going to figure out what is causing the dysfunction in your body. And then we're going to work with you to develop a realistic action plan to get you better. And nurses are really good at this because we tend to have, not saying that doctors don't have good bedside manner, but we tend to be a little bit better about the bedside manner. Patients are more comfortable with us anyway. And, even if you have a good doctor that's like, yeah, you need to do an anti-inflammatory diet, you need to, eat more vegetables and do this, do that. Sometimes these patients, they go home and they're overwhelmed and they're like, I don't know how to do that. So that's another role that we can play on the outpatient basis, is coaching them through how to do these things, showing them how to do it. And then with how I work is, this is another thing that I think is wrong with conventional medicine. We fragment the care. You have a GI issue, you go to the GI. You have migraines, you go to the neuro. You have a thyroid issue, you go to the endocrinologist. I look at everything. If they have labs from any other doctor, they upload it to my portal. I do another double check on their safety net to make sure that nothing got missed. I also do research into each case, because I understand that what is going on in the gut is going to affect the brain and the hormones, and the body is very holistically connected. So this is something that nurses can start out and have their, low overhead concierge practice on their own. And again, once you start doing this type of work and you get somebody better, they're going to tell everybody they know about you. And then you're going to have a steady referral stream like I do. Like, I don't even have to market my practice. I just, I get calls all the time of people wanting to work with me, and it's amazing. And this was one of the reasons why I started the Functional Nurse Academy, because I'd gotten so busy. And then with all of these nurses being out of work because of the mandates and these ridiculous protocols, and things have been getting so bad in medicine, there's so many unhappy nurses, I was having more and more nurses reach out to me wanting to learn what I was doing. So I decided to put a program together, not only to teach you guys about functional medicine, but how to actually apply it to get these people well. And then I also took all of my tools, like my assessment forms, my patient handouts, studies I reference, doctor template, like letters I've written to doctors. I saved that for you guys to use it as a template because I wanted to provide a program to get you guys prepared to practice this with also further instruction, tools, and resources, and also teach you guys how to do the business formation. Because another factor for me putting this together was I felt like nurses were getting taken advantage of, because as nurses were becoming more vulnerable, I was seeing more and more programs kind of like rising up, and then things like MLMs rising up and trying to recruit nurses. And I was seeing nurses spend a lot of money for these programs, but then they would get out and they're still working at the hospital because they weren't properly prepared for private practice.
Yeah, I just want to add in there, this program, number one, there's a couple things. I've taken this myself. So not only can I wholeheartedly recommend this, this is not a program that I'm just hearing about and interested in. I have finished this program. The resources available for functional medicine nurses blow out of the water the resources available for nurse consultants and nurse course creators. I'm familiar with all these, freelance areas of nurse business, and I have been shocked the amount of resources and tools and real solid support for functional nursing, not only through your academy, but just in general. Obviously, your academy ties it all together. I love that. It puts it all in one place. That toolkit is unreal. Literally A to Z, start your functional nurse business. It is there in the box. It has all the forms you need. It has all the studies you need. It helps you niche down. It's got everything. But not only that, like, this is a real thing. This is not, like you said, this is not an MLM where you're selling one product and you get your inventory. And I think that can be confusing. I do want to address that because there are supplements that we use to improve health, but they are not from a multi-level network marketing company. It's not one brand you get your supplements from the one provider, you mark them up, you try and get them to, have a party where you all try supplements, right? This is a true healthcare model built on real assessment and nursing skills. And there's tons of resources out there for functional nurses as well. I did put this little QR code, if you can see it, and I can't fit all the letters, so it just says Functional Academy, but this is the Functional Nurse Academy that Melissa runs, and the link is in the chat right here as well. It's the Functional Nurse Academy. You can copy that link and paste it into your Internet Explorer and check it out. Her next cohort is starting in June. Is that correct?
Yes, so we start June 8th, and then I have an early enrollment special available until the end of April. So it's $525 off of tuition. Wow. If you enroll by April 30th. And also, if you guys are interested, but you have questions and you want to talk to me, I'm happy to get on like a one-to-one call with any nurse that's interested. If you go to my website, there's actually a link where you can book a 15-minute call with me if you're interested, but you just have questions or concerns about something. And also, I did design this program with busy nurses in mind. And I also know that we have all been through the hell of nursing school. So I have learned ways to make this like to make this an enjoyable experience with community of other like-minded nurses. And say that we have a live class that you're running late from work and can't join. All of the classes are going to be recorded and accessible for you to view in the module. And it also is going to be CEU accredited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do we have any questions from anybody that's on? Any questions you want to put in the chat before we wrap up here in the next 5 minutes or so? This program, I have done a lot of research myself, just in the different functional medicine programs, what they offer, how they're built, and their cost. And I can tell you, pretty straightforwardly that this is the best option I have seen yet. I've probably looked at 10 different programs before I even met you in Orlando, before I heard about yours. I had been looking at this for a long time. It's something I'm really interested in. I'm getting my PhD in natural medicine just for myself, just as something. I don't know if you guys have kids, but I don't get to do a lot of stuff for myself. And this was not in one of those things where, you feel like you have to get more degrees and more certificates and more knowledge. I did this for myself. And so if this is something that interests you, I would highly recommend Melissa's course, Melissa's program for functional medicine. I have learned so much I did not know. And I really feel like what you said, just how this truly embodies the role of the nurse in healthcare, I think to me is the most impactful thing. I don't see any questions right now. Anybody, any last questions before we wrap up here? And we've got the link right here and the QR code. If you want more information, you can also reach out to Melissa. She is in this group, so send her a message. If you need to talk, you can book an intro call at functionalnurseacademy.com with her and talk through any questions that you might have as well. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us, Melissa, that you didn't get a chance to?
I did make some updates with the June cohort. So it is now faith-based with the recognition that our bodies were created magnificently and beautifully created by God. And I also wanted to mention, I don't advertise this just yet, but I do have a monthly mentorship, which is only available to graduates of the Functional Nurse Academy. So again, when you finish the course, you get the CEUs, you get the certificate of completion, you have the toolkit. But if you want to have continued access to me, that is a program that you would be eligible for. And it's like $50 a month after you graduate, where basically we all meet on a call 1 hour per month. And I go over like actual case studies of clients I've worked with, and you can see the labs, how I got them well, how I advocated for them, what was their progress. And then I also kind of alternate between case studies and then deep dive topics based on polling from the nurses that are in my mentorship program. So there is opportunity for like continued mentorship post the program. Yeah. And again, with functional medicine, I mean, again, like the demand is massive. We have a lot of work to do.
It's unreal, the demand for this right now.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer that it's going to be nurses that are going to come in and clean up this big healthcare mess that we've got.
I agree. The other thing I just want to add is this is a great revenue stream to add. If you're already doing nurse coaching, or if you're already looking at creating digital courses, digital downloads, passive income streams, I would highly recommend that you still consider adding this as just another revenue stream that you can layer on top of your existing business. For me, I strongly believe in having multiple revenue streams. The supplements are a revenue stream you can have. People continue to use your supplement store that you use. They continue to use your materials you can create with functional medicine. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, even if you feel like, well, I'm not sure I want to be a functional medicine coach. That's okay. If you're already like, well, I'm already a nurse coach, that's okay too. This is a great foundation to build on if you want to do other things as well. And it's also a great thing to layer on top of an existing business foundation. So thanks, Melissa. Thanks for coming on. We don't have any questions right now, but you guys can comment on here and one of us will catch it. I'll tag her and she'll tag me, and we'll reply to any questions you have. And thanks so much for your time today, Melissa. I loved having you on, and looking forward to continue to working with you and to seeing you in Nashville in a few days.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I'll see you soon.